Hello, everybody tuning in today from home. My name is Beth Timmers, and I am a member of the Food Matters Manitoba Board of Directors. The organization has a vision of a Manitoba where good food nourishes strong communities and healthy people, a message that we can see increasingly is so important in today's changing world. Thank you so much for coming today. I'm going to start by giving a quick overview on the scope of participants who are tuning in today. It's a lot more than just me sort of in a box on your computer. And the group is really representative of Food Matters Manitoba's broader constituency. So who do we have out there today? We have members from federal and provincial parliaments. Welcome here. We also have people from all across Canada. We have participants from Saskatchewan, Ontario, Newfoundland, and Manitoba. We also have colleagues from our partner organizations involved in food security service delivery programs. We have Indigenous groups, newcomer groups, inner city and rural groups, and representation from Northern Canada. We also have some attendees from sister provincial food justice organizations. Welcome. We have representation of our funders from government, including the Public Health Agency of Canada, and corporate and private donors. A special acknowledgement to the health providers who are tuning in, especially from the Regional Health Authority. And lastly, we have educators and some students, and a really special shout out to an entire food and nutrition class from Winnipeg's Techbach High School. Next, land acknowledgement. Food Matters Manitoba is on Treaty 1 territory. That's the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, Cree, Dene, and Dakota people, and the homeland of the Métis Nation. Now, just a quick review of our agenda for today. So this event is going to be about 40 to 45 minutes long. We're going to begin with some background information from Food Matters and the video project itself. We're going to show the videos, which are about 5 minutes each. Then we're going to have a chance for reflection and questions. Now, I know people are quickly becoming experts at Zoom. I'm on it all the time, but still learning. So just a few tips about housekeeping and facilitation for today's event. We can't hear any of you talking, so please liberally use the chat function. We're going to be moderating that, so it should be a little box at the bottom of your screen. Any questions or issues, if you can't hear or see things well enough, we'll try our best to get that going. But again, we're all still learning here. And just a tip, if you can't hear the videos properly or it's a bit choppy, just to close down anything else you have going on. I'm sure there's lots of people on Netflix at the house right now at home. And just so you know, this event is also being recorded right now. Now I'd like to introduce our esteemed Executive Director of Food Matters Manitoba. Rob, would you like to take it away?
Thanks so much, Beth. Welcome and thank you to everyone tuning in today. We're so glad you could join us for this event. As Beth mentioned, Food Matters Manitoba is dedicated to a vision of good food, strong communities, and healthy people. For nearly a decade, and with generous support from the Public Health Agency of Canada, we've been able to deliver top quality programs that enhance the capacity of community-based organizations, newcomers, and youth to overcome barriers to accessing good food and eating well. During that time, we were privileged to work with so many people who were taking initiative to make change in their communities. Some by initiating a healthy food program or participating in a network or food council, some by teaching or learning new skills or participating in community discussions or action planning. But we were also keenly aware that despite everyone's best efforts, systemic barriers to food insecurity or to food security persist, and lasting change was going to require a greater collective action towards ending poverty and hunger. And what we were lacking was some language to help unpack this with our program participants and some tools for ramped up advocacy. So when we were asked to produce a series of videos that reflect on lessons learned, we took that opportunity to reflect on household food insecurity, what it means for Manitoba families to not have sufficient resources to feed themselves, and what can and should be done about that. As it turns out, the topic is more timely than ever. The COVID-19 pandemic is highlighting the consequences of precarious employment and inadequate incomes for household food insecurity, and how easily folks can find themselves struggling to put food on the table. Going forward, these videos will be incorporated into Food Matters Manitoba curriculum and public outreach campaigns, and we encourage you to share them widely to build awareness of this critical food issue that we know will only become more apparent in the wake of the pandemic. Before we begin, I want to say a special thanks to Joanna Platter, who took the lead on this project and facilitated wide consultation with many of our community partners. With their input, we identified those who you will hear sharing their experiences and expertise. I want to particularly thank the 11 interviewees for sharing their stories and wisdom. Many traveled from outside Winnipeg to participate. Thanks also to the professionals at Build Films for the great work that they did with the production. And thank you also to Karen Douglas, our development coordinator at Food Matters Manitoba, who's in the wings and helping to make everything run smoothly, although I take full responsibility for any technical difficulties. Finally, I want to thank the Public Health Agency of Canada for their support of our work over many years, including with special funding they provided for this project, this film project. There are 3 videos, each about 5 minutes. The first one focuses on experiences of household food insecurity, the second on causes, and finally the last on solutions. Following each of the videos, we will have a few questions for reflection, and we'll invite you to reflect for a few moments. For those of you who are gathered with others, with appropriate distance, of course, we encourage you to reflect together. If you're alone, you can take the time between videos for self-reflection or enter your thoughts into the chat box. Our hope is that you come away from viewing these videos with inspiration and hope, but we will also hear about some difficult experiences. The reflection questions may also bring up some strong emotions, so we want you to be prepared for that. And if this brings up bad feelings for you, we encourage you to reach out to someone you trust. After the viewing, I will give you information on how you can access the videos and supporting documentation that we developed to go along with them. So without further ado, I present Food Insecurity in Manitoba: Experiences, Causes, Solutions.
I was 16 and living on my own when I first experienced food insecurity.
I was not able to cover my food needs, and it was a tough experience.
Not being able to have the foods that I was familiar with that made me feel at home.
Growing up, we were quite poor, so even when my dad couldn't get food to eat, we'd have to go to like the local stores, right, which is just canned food.
About 20 years ago when I moved to Canada, it's so hard to find the food that you like and you love.
When I didn't have enough to provide for my children, my health went right down.
When I started getting low on food, I'd start limiting how much food that I had a day, to the point of skipping meals a day and not just not eating, so that I could make that food stretch.
When I was younger, my cousin was like, "What's that?" It was a watermelon. He didn't even know what a watermelon was, right? And it's so sad that kids don't know what food is. The pricing and the location, so many barriers as to why my people or our people can't even get healthy foods in the community.
13 years ago, when I came to Canada, I experienced food insecurity. I had to run to the food bank to get my food, and then go home, leave it home, and go back to my classroom. And it was a tough experience.
Some of the common misconceptions are that everybody has what they need in their home.
I've heard that food insecurity doesn't really affect your mental health, where in a lot of ways it does. For example, one of my medications that I take, you need to have food with it. You can't take it without food.
Many people don't know that food is everything. When the person pays the rent and takes care of other necessities, then there isn't enough to cover food.
It's really important where I came from and where I grew up. We eat fresh food, we cook every day, and you have to go to the market every day to get the fresh.
It's not understanding or not having access to good healthy food. It's not getting the nutrition that you need to get through the day. It's so connected to stress and health and mental health. I don't think people understand the impacts that choosing coffee all day long because you don't have access to food plays a significant toll on your body. But this idea that people in our classrooms, in our workplaces are not just getting no food, but also getting poor food.
Food is our life.
Food is beyond the plate.
All right, so that concludes our first video. Now we have some questions for reflection. The first question is, are there stories or comments in the video that stand out for you? And why do they stand out? The second question, and we'll give some time for reflection after this, is, are there people in your community and your family who are food insecure? Perhaps this is or has been your experience. What is that experience like, or what do you think that experience might be like?
So sorry to interrupt your reflection. There'll be 2 more opportunities, so you can continue to comment in the chat box. I love what's being said so far. There's a lot of feedback around, the last line, particularly about food being beyond the plate, about it being everything about it being life. I think that there's some really great reflections there. I just encourage you to continue to add those comments, and we'll be summarizing these afterwards. And also, if there's questions that stand out, we'll have an opportunity to respond to those in some meaningful way. So perhaps later in a blog post, or we'll contact you directly. So continue to get those comments in, and thanks so much for sharing. So next, we'll move on to our next video, which is about to queue up, I suppose. Thanks so much. Okay, our next video, causes. Thank you.
Food insecurity is about not having sufficient income to be able to purchase the food you want, maybe living in a neighborhood or a community where you don't have access to a grocery store, or maybe there isn't adequate transportation to get there, right? Maybe there's a grocery store that's a couple kilometers away and there isn't a bus route.
When we go to the store for groceries, we do see organic foods. We do see healthy foods there, but they are very expensive. We can't afford those kind of healthy food in the grocery store.
As a single mom raising 3 boys, and they're very tall. They're very tall. Really, they eat a lot, and it's really hard.
There's so many restrictions and different policies that make it hard to provide for your family. It could be like social assistance, it could be child and family services, it could be the work, the paycheck. So it's like a balancing act when it comes to food security.
Because of a disability that I had, it costed me my last job, so I'm back on EIA. And the money they give you just doesn't stretch throughout the month. So sometimes I worry about whether or not I'm going to have the food to last me an entire month. Another barrier that I've experienced is the locations of grocery stores. Not having a car, and sometimes not even having the bus fare because you're struggling with money to just get the food in the first place, let alone bus fare.
From the first time we landed here is, where's the store? We don't have any means of transportation. We don't have our own vehicles to actually go to the grocery. And then we don't know what bus to take. And also the weather. This is the first time that we're experiencing this kind of like having a winter that it really have a hard time for us.
Sometimes people coming from different backgrounds, sometimes they're shy to go there, or sometimes they're scared to who I can talk to the person and access to the food bank.
When I was younger, we received Christmas cheerboard food hampers, and my parents being relatively new to Canada, half of it they wouldn't know how to prepare or eat.
The truth is that food banks often have to provide non-perishable items, which are prepackaged food in lots of cases. And so even if they're getting access to food, it isn't necessarily the best food.
Whether you have a full-time job, a part-time job, or you're homeless, or if you're on social assistance, everybody suffers from time to time.
Our nearest grocery store is 3 hours away. And a lot of low-income people cannot even make it out of the reserve to go get fresh fruits anywhere. That's a huge barrier.
We need to really address the root causes of food insecurity, which are being able to earn a living wage, addressing institutionalized racism, addressing the lack of affordable housing.
This is not just about individual circumstances. Food insecurity is very much about inequalities in the food system.
Over the years, I think that we've learned that identifying the things that they don't have the power to change, it helps take some of the shame that comes with food insecurity away, because people very easily will blame themselves for not being able to afford healthy foods or for not being able to keep their family healthy.
Thank you so much to everybody who have been putting comments in so far. It's really nice to feel that sense of connection and communicating this despite tuning in online. So that's been really wonderful to see everyone's comments. We have a second set of reflection questions now, but if you have any feedback or reflections, please put them in the comments. It's really great to see. So the next set of reflection questions are there stories or comments in this video about the root causes of food insecurity that stand out to you, and why do they stand out? Number 2, what barriers exist in your community for people accessing enough healthy, affordable, and culturally appropriate food? And third, what misconceptions have you encountered regarding people who are food insecure? What do you see as the sources? There's lots of chats popping up here, so it's blocking the question, which is a great thing. As the sources and consequences of I can't see the end of it, but it'll pop up soon. So please take some time to reflect, add your comments into the chat, and then we'll summarize them in a few moments.
So my apologies for interrupting the reflections again. I see there's so many comments coming in, and I just really want to encourage folks to continue to do that. There's a lot of talk I see coming out about the bravery of people to tell their stories. People are also sharing their stories in the comments, and that's also really inspiring. And thank you for doing that and sharing those comments with us. Even some suggestions about additional reflection questions we might consider. And as I'll talk about later, you know, we really want to incorporate these kinds of learning opportunities into our greater outreach and curriculum work. So certainly we invite feedback in terms of the types of questions we should be asking to elicit the types of responses we're getting from you. So this is very lovely. Thank you for sharing. And we'll continue on to our third video focused on solutions. So thank you so much.
There's a hierarchy of needs that every human being needs, food being one of the very basic ones. And if those initial needs aren't met, then that person or community are unable to move towards the next needs in the level.
Access to healthy food is a human right. It's enshrined in the UN Declaration of Human Rights. It's a right that Canada has adopted as an aspirational right, is the right to food. So it's about the ability to be able to purchase food or to have access to the resources to produce your own food so that it's a dignified right.
I believe that Manitobans can help food insecurity by helping at their local food banks, by helping at a soup kitchen, and take away the stigma of people that are suffering from food insecurity.
At a community level, access to healthy food then is also about thinking about what are all the resources at a community level that could support people in provisioning and accessing healthy food. So it could be grocery stores, it could be farmers markets, community gardens.
Rainbow Community Gardens, for example, which is a grassroots initiative. Each of the families was saving at least $100 on groceries every month.
I would love people have more accessible to garden around Winnipeg.
A lot of the very successful programs are the ones that are community grown and community owned.
I run a lot of programming, like after school programming, where I feed the kids, right? So then I come do a big shop here in Winnipeg, and then I just keep the food back home. But I can't buy a bunch of fruit and keep them for the month. My dream is to start our own greenhouses. That way we can create our own vegetables and share with the communities around us.
If we're thinking outside of cities, it's about also access to land and territory to go and provision wild foods and to hunt.
For thousands of years, we ran our own communities, our own societies in a way that allowed us to be some of the healthiest people in the world. The only time that that wasn't the case was when we were colonially ruled by Canada. So I think by removing that and allowing us to control our own societies again, I think that would definitely give us the space to improve food insecurity.
To listen to communities and make sure their voice is heard and make sure that they have the resources, not only financially, but also the human resources and the training in order to make sure that their own solution come to life.
In terms of enhancing food security and thinking about policy and systems change, this isn't only about what foods are being produced or what we eat, but also how are decisions made about the food system. And so, the Winnipeg Food Council, the Brandon Food Council, they're examples of this rise in citizen and civil society interest in food. It's really important to think about the way in which food interconnects with all sorts of other systems. So we need to be thinking about the interconnections among agriculture and health and trade and environment. And so addressing food security is very much about thinking about supportive income policies, about addressing housing, about addressing transportation needs.
Being able to provide kids nutrients and a safe place to eat is an investment in our future.
There's a space in our society where people don't get treated with dignity. And I think we can move that needle together, and that starts with people who are food secure and don't live in poverty, looking at themselves and what they can do for someone who is, and reaching out to help, or just treating them better, right? Treating your neighbors as you'd want to be treated.
All right, here's our last round of reflection questions for everyone. And again, thank you so much for all your comments so far. As much as these videos are really moving, it's equally moving to hear all of your perspectives. So first, what do you think are the most important things that need to happen to address food insecurity, both at local, regional, and national scales? And how can you get involved in these efforts? Second, how can you envision using these videos in some of your great work or your great educational activities that you're working on, or with others in your community? Who do you need to share this resource with?
Sorry to interrupt you once again. Just wanted to say thank you for all the great comments. They're still coming in, and I encourage you to continue to do that. You know, in closing, I want to let everyone know that these videos are available on our website at foodmattersmanitoba.ca. There'll be another set of videos there with French subtitles. On the website, you'll also find a set of 3 accompanying infographics in English and a set in French, which you can download and use with the videos. Today's process will also be available on the site, and our intent is to produce more educational resources and mobilizing tools to address critical food issues like household food insecurity. And as part of the strategy, we are developing a dynamic web-based program we're calling the Manitoba Food Action Hub. That'll provide resources and connection for agencies and groups working on food security issues. The hub will be a platform for interactive webinars where we can continue to bring together folks interested in deepening work around food security. So stay tuned. The hub is currently in the testing stage, and you can learn more on our website. Thanks again to the Public Health Agency of Canada for their funding. Food Matters Manitoba is grateful to the many donors, individuals, and foundations, as well as government, who we rely on to make this work possible. We're very grateful for that. Finally, I want to send a shout out to all those working on the front lines of the pandemic, including those in healthcare and social services, those in food production and food service, so critical at this time, and the many nonprofit organizations that are answering the call to action. Feel free to reach out to us if you have questions or further comments. You can contact us at info@foodmattersmanitoba.ca. And as I said, we'll make some of the comments and questions available shortly. Thanks, all the best, and take care.